Thinking about making the move to Utah in 2026? Great idea, but hold on. Before you pack up and point that GPS to Utah and head out west, you might want to learn a few things before you do so. And these are things that you're definitely going to want to know, and these are things that oftentimes people just don't tell you. And if you get these things wrong, your dream scenario and your dream home and your new life here in Utah could be completely wrong. You could absolutely turn what should be a really pleasant surprise into a nightmare. But it's my goal that you get every last one of them right. And if you do that, you'll be miles ahead of everybody else, and you'll actually make this the dream move that you're looking for. And you, along with so many others, will find your new home here in Utah, and it will be amazing. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Scott Steele, and I help people relocate to Utah every single day. And in this video, I'm here to help you and guide you to make sure that you can make that move as well. And we're deep diving in what it really means to make the move to Utah so that you can be best prepared to do so. You've probably heard the conventional stories. Utah's affordable, lots of outdoor adventures and lifestyle, great schools, and an absolutely booming job market. And while all of those things are very true to an extent, there's more to the story. In other words, there are trade-offs, there are quirks, there are things you're going to have to get used to and things that you must know before you make the move here. And look, Utah is not remaining stagnant. We are growing, and with that growth comes not only growing pains, but a new way of life. So what we really want to do is paint that picture for you in terms of what Utah is becoming, because Utah is becoming one of the most desirable places to live in the entire country. And those are the things that you're going to learn in this video. And by the end, you'll have 5 concrete areas where you need to be really well informed to make sure that this move for you is as smooth as it has been for so many others. Because ultimately, your move will only be a success if you understand these things. I'll walk you through what to expect, what to aim for, and what to watch out for. And look, I've done all of the research as I do constantly here in the state of Utah, and in helping countless people relocate here to Utah as well, I understand what makes people tick in terms of what they're looking for when they make the move. And with all of this data and experience, I'm here to guide you along the way as well. And it's not just about guidance, it's about giving you actionable steps that you can do right now to prepare for that move yourself. Okay, so let's say you're moving to Utah and you're thinking that moving here is going to save you a ton of money. Let's think again, because that has changed in recent years. And let's be honest, one of the biggest motivators for moving is cost and cost savings. And yes, Utah, because of the value that Utah provides in terms of lifestyle and everything else, as well as cost of living, has been a major draw in recent years. And even our state's government websites, including the tab or the areas that you can find with respect to moving to Utah, these pages list countless resources for new residents, housing searches, vehicle registration, etc. But here in Utah, the reality is certain areas are already very expensive, and competition is strong, and growth is driving up prices. And so let's talk numbers. Let's first and foremost talk about where do most people move to when they make the move to Utah. And I recently read an article titled Where to Move in Utah in 2026, the 8 top neighborhood picks that they highlight very different from price point to price point. For example, the historic Yellcrest neighborhood of Salt Lake City has a median home price of above $1 million. And while Yellcrest is one of my personal favorites, it's probably not within the budget of many other people. Meanwhile, master plan communities like Daybreak or Terrain or Firefly or many others throughout the state provide countless opportunities for people to get into homes in the 500s, the 600s, or the 7 or 8s. It just depends on where you want to be and what you're expecting out of your home and your community. And what this all tells me is, yes, you can buy a brand new, beautiful home in Eagle Mountain, for example, for $520,000. And that same home, if you plug that into, close to the city in Salt Lake City, that home is probably going to be in the 7s, possibly even in the 800s, depending on the desirability for that particular neighborhood. Now, while there are drastic differences between new construction homes and older homes that have quote unquote charm, there's a lot to consider here when making the move yourself. And what this should all tell you is where you move in Utah matters tremendously for your budget. If you're moving from a cheaper market and hoping for big savings, you might still save a lot of money, but you won't get cheap no matter where you go. No matter what, but also expect the bidding competition in those fast-growing, desirable areas, those fast-moving listings where there are fewer homes that meet the demand for the people coming to buy them. And despite the market conditions over the last 2.5 to 3 years, we've still seen competitive markets depending on which neighborhood, which area, and which price point of homes we're hitting. And so, why does all of this matter? If you underestimate the cost, inevitably you're going to end up moving in and think to yourself, this isn't the bargain that I signed up for. It's not really checking all of those boxes that I was hoping to. And so your budget must include a number of things, and the house price is just the first of them. There are other factors that come into play as well. And these variables include the home value by neighborhood, plus the commute costs, plus climate-related maintenance. Yes, that mountain lifestyle really does come into play, and all of the other things from HOA fees to other things that could impact your affordability and cost of living when you move here. And the bottom line here in terms of cost is it just depends on where you're going. You can get into a neighborhood or a home and expect to pay in the 500s or the 600s, and in others it's closer to $1 million or even $2 or $3 million, depending on if you're getting up into Park City or some of those really desirable areas. Regardless of what you're doing, I have a strong opinion with respect to, I think it's the best approach when you get into a neighborhood where you're not stretching yourself to the point where you, number one, can't afford it, but also on the flip side, I hate to see people purchase a home in a neighborhood where their home is the most expensive property. I think that's terrible for resale value, and it doesn't give you the same bargain and the cachet that you're looking for if you're looking to live in a certain way in that certain neighborhood. So now you've got a better idea with respect to cost. But cost is only half of the story. Because what about lifestyle? And yes, Utah looks amazing on Instagram, but there are realities that you need to know that extend beyond that postcard perfect Pinterest-worthy Instagram post. So you move to Utah for the mountains, the hikes, and of course the powder. But the question is, do you live for it every single day? And can you handle all of the bells and whistles? Let's find out. Utah is super strong with respect to outdoor amenities and lifestyle. From mountain lakes to ski resorts to mountain biking trails to the ski slopes, we've got that and so much more. And what I thought was fun is as I was reading through comments of people that I've helped make the move here, these are some of the best comments that I kind of wrote down, and I just want to share their perspective in terms of what they've experienced as they first landed here and moved in and started to make this place home. One of my clients says, stay in shape because people here consider a 10 or 12 mile hike absolutely normal. Another person said, chapped lips, thin air, give yourself time to acclimate because that dry climate really does affect you. You're going to love the scenery, but you're going to want to make sure that you acclimate to the high altitude and everything in between because it can be an adjustment. And while not everybody in Utah is hitting the slopes in the ski season or hitting those trails in the summertime, yes, Utah is a very active place to be. And if that's you and you want to get more active, this is the perfect place to find people that are just like you with that same mindset. But ultimately, what does all of this mean for you when making the move here to Utah? First up, let's talk elevation and altitude. Many parts of the Wasatch Front are between 4,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level. You may experience different physical effects at first, including lightheadedness or, if you're exerting yourself while hiking or running, you're going to feel that difference when you make the move here. And I've had clients actually visiting here, and if you're watching this video and you visited recently and you felt the impacts of the higher altitude, I feel for you. And it definitely is true. It is a factor for some people. But after usually about 2, 3, or 4 weeks, our bodies tend to really acclimate to the higher altitude here and you'll be just fine. It's just that initial hit when you're coming from a low altitude place up to this higher altitude and you're exerting yourself and perhaps you're not hydrating enough. Those are all factors that come into play if you do end up feeling that thing that we call altitude sickness. Next up, in terms of seasons and climate, everybody moves here loving the idea of having 4 seasons. And I joke all of the time that no, we don't really have 4 seasons. We only have 2, and that's ski season and construction season. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because Utah is world renowned and famous for our slopes and hitting the ski resorts and snowboarding and all of the wintertime activities. But we are also an incredibly fast growing state with a ton of growth and therefore a lot of construction. But in terms of weather and what you can actually expect, you're probably going to get some pretty hot summers. You're likely going to have about a week's worth of days during the summertime with at least 100-degree temperatures. Most of our summer days are going to be in the upper 80s or the lower 90s, but it certainly does get hotter than that during some days in the summertime. And in addition to that, you're also going to experience the drier air, which makes that heat a little more bearable, actually a lot more bearable than places that are much more humid. You're also, on the flip side, going to experience the full breadth of a winter here in Utah, which is what has put Utah on the map to begin with. But wintertime and summertime and everything in between is what you can expect in terms of your new life in Utah. And what does that mean for you? That means prepping for things like vehicle winter gear, properly layering your clothing, insulation, and of course, humidity control in your home if you do want more humidity in the air in your home. Also, on that topic, in terms of recreation and getting outside and experience what Utah really has to offer, there's other things to consider as well. Because the outdoors are so plentiful here in Utah, and many residents also invest in gear, time, travel, depending on where you live, for the activities that you're most interested in. If you're moving for a simpler life, the gear arms race might surprise you here in Utah, because when people fall in love with a certain activity, they go all in and they buy all of the gear, and sometimes that can be a little contagious and not necessarily the best use of your funds if you're limited in that regard. Which leads me to the culture here in terms of activity. We definitely have a culture here in Utah with respect to healthy activity in the outdoors and indoors as well. If you're used to a more laid-back pace, you might find locals are pretty active, which is kind of a net positive in my opinion, but it also could be an adjustment and a shift for you. Also, that remote lifestyle versus the city lifestyle is definitely a trade-off. Some neighborhoods will give you mountain living but more commute time, while others will give you more of that urban convenience, but it's going to give you less yard space and personal space depending on where you're looking to live. The nice thing about Utah is it offers everything that you could ever want with respect to suburban or rural or even urban lifestyles, because we've got it all. And why this all matters to begin with is what you expect in your mind before you make the move here is what's going to dictate as to whether or not you actually fall in love with it. And the lifestyle that you imagine, waking up to mountain views, hitting the trails after work, breathing fresh air, is absolutely attainable, but you need to fit into it and prepare for it. If you move and expect just relax all day and let things come to you, you might feel a mismatch. Conversely, if you embrace the mindset, you'll love it and the move will feel just perfect and right. Up next, where to live, jobs, and commute times. Because all of these really cool things in terms of lifestyle and activity only matters if you can actually make this move happen and you can live and work and commute to make this possible to begin with. Now, I've seen this countless times. People fall in love with a home about 45 minutes away from downtown Salt Lake City, but it's just a little too far for them to make that commute. Now, I can relate because I live in a place that's about 25 to 30 minutes away from downtown Salt Lake City, and for me, that's absolutely perfect. And yes, I commute at all times of the day, every single day, and I drive more than just about anybody that I know, so I'm very familiar with the commute patterns and the hangups and the traffic patterns, depending on the year, because construction definitely plays into it as well. And look, as Utah grows, many areas are expanding super fast. For example, neighborhoods in and around Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain are some of the fastest growing communities in the entire state, but their distance from downtown Salt Lake City stretches beyond that 30-minute barrier into the 45-minute to hour territory. Also, there are master plan communities like Daybreak in South Jordan or Terrain in West Jordan, where you can kind of have that balance of I'm within 30 minutes of downtown, but I live in this beautiful master plan community where I can really plant roots with other people that are like-minded and that are falling into that same category in terms of people that are relocating here from elsewhere, because in those neighborhoods, it's about 7 out of 10 people are people that aren't from here. And look, there's trade-offs to everything, depending on whether you want that suburban lifestyle or if you want to live right in the heart of the city, or maybe you want to live in an older, more established neighborhood or home closer to the Wasatch Mountains for access to the great outdoors and the ski resorts. Regardless of where you're considering, I've got your back. I understand all of it to make sure that I can guide you exactly to the right place for you. So where you live in Utah has massive implications on your daily life. And here's how to apply all of these things. First, identify your job location or remote work needs, and of course, how often you will actually make that commute. Will you need good transit access? Will you need public transportation? Or do you just work remotely and none of this really is applicable to begin with? Next up, evaluate neighborhood options. The urban core in and around Salt Lake City, as well as a couple of other areas in the state versus the suburban areas, whether it's an established suburban area or a booming new growth area versus mountain lifestyle along the Wasatch Back or in Park City, or if you want that desert landscape and that desert lifestyle in Southwest Utah in the St. George market. Each one of these places has different price points, different commute times, amenities, and trade-offs, and there's no perfect one-size-fits-all for everybody. You're definitely going to want to have a conversation with us to make sure that we can guide you to the right places specifically for you. And I see another thing a lot where people choose to live in a certain area, but it doesn't really work for their lifestyle in their daily life. For example, I've had people that I've seen move to mountainous areas because that is the dream, of course, to live in and around Park City or anywhere along the Wasatch Back, but yet they make that commute regularly. And if they want to drive 45 minutes every day, I guess that works. But for so many people, that gets cumbersome and tiresome pretty quick. And in some areas in Utah, that public transportation that I oftentimes talk about is expanding. In fact, here in Salt Lake County, we have one of the best public transportation systems in the entire country. In fact, the light rail system goes all throughout the county and the Salt Lake City metropolitan area and includes areas like Daybreak, where we have 3 stops along that train to get on the light rail and hop into downtown Salt Lake City or the University of Utah or any of the other places that we might find interesting, whether we want to go to an RSL soccer game or another sporting event downtown with the Utah Jazz or the Utah Mammoth, or maybe we just want to go to a concert or something else in terms of a performing arts event or something else. There's so many places you can go using our public transportation system here. However, outside of Salt Lake City and the Salt Lake City Metro, we're kind of limited in terms of public transportation to the Frontrunner train and perhaps bus systems, but that's about it. And as I always tell people, I think it's best to think long term. As some of these neighborhoods continue to grow and grow and grow, what they are today may not be what they will be in 3, 4, or 5 years. So we have to know where things are headed to know if it's the right place for you. Because look, a lot of these suburban areas will become denser, roads will get busier, and home values will shift. It will get more expensive. So pick a spot that you can live in for up to 5 to 10 years without feeling stuck or feeling regret. And why does all of this matter to begin with? Well, your move isn't even about the house. The house is secondary. Everything else comes first. It's about your lifestyle. It's about your day-to-day things, including your commute and your experiences as a family with your kids or whatever the case may be. All of these things are more important. And that's why I always teach people that we first focus on these things, and then we will find you the perfect house once we get everything else dialed in. And look, we've built out the perfect system to help people relocate to Utah. And if that's you and you're looking to make that move, reach out to us. Whether you're moving here or you already live here, we're here to help. My real estate team and I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. So reach out to us. We've got the perfect system dialed in to help you make this move as smooth as possible. And once we find the perfect place for you, the perfect neighborhood and community and city, and the perfect lifestyle that meets your needs, then we shift the focus to the actual house. And if your dream home is beautiful, but the commute drains you, you'll feel regret. If your job is too far away, your time is lost. If your neighborhood lacks amenities that you really would appreciate or need, like grocery stores in your neighborhood or schools that are top rated, or medical needs or transit, you'll feel isolated. So we are going to pick smart depending on what you're looking for. And that leads into my next point, which is family, community, and culture. If you're relocating here for kids, or if you're looking for community, Utah's really good for all of those things, but there are things that you're going to want to know. And sometimes these are things that nobody tells you until you've already made the move. So with that said, let's talk about the culture that you're stepping into. First of all, moving to a new state is more than just a house and a job. It's about the people, the community, the schools, and the lifestyle fit. Utah lists on their official website the sections for school information, vehicle registration for newcomers, and all of the things that really are the semantics behind what people actually have to consider when moving here. But here are things that you really have to dig into. Number one, first and foremost, if you have kids and family, is you want to be in the right schools and the right district to make sure that it works for your children as well. Utah has many strong schools in many different areas, but you're definitely going to want to do your research to make sure that you're finding the right place for you, because not all schools are created equal. And as a real estate broker, I can't really direct you based on school rankings, but I can absolutely point you to the right resources. We have those for you to make sure that you can do that research and understand what you're getting into. And in terms of community culture, that's something that's really important as well. Some areas are very family-oriented, while others are driven by lifestyle and outdoor enthusiasts. And others are more driven for singles and young adults, and some are more of a suburban or urban environment that isn't as necessarily geared towards families. The bottom line here is let's make sure that we pick the right spot for you and that the overall vibe is perfect for what you're looking for. And I really think that local amenities in the area where you're living really do matter. Can you walk to that coffee shop that you want to? Can you walk to a local restaurant? Or do you have to get in the car and drive for miles before you get to those things? And in addition to that, it's the parks, it's the libraries, it's the other amenities that are sprinkled throughout the communities here that are really going to be relevant for you depending on where you want to live and what's going to impact your decision. And for others, the cost and availability of childcare and daycare could definitely be a factor as well. So we want to consider all of these things as we find the right place for you. And I can share this with you. Almost everybody that makes the move here absolutely falls in love with life in Utah, including the people. We are friendly people here in the state of Utah, and people are kind of set back at times with how friendly the people are here. Hopefully that's your experience as well. That doesn't mean that we don't have the opposite of that at times as well, because everywhere does, but hopefully you have a really wonderful experience. And I would add that I think the best approach to making the move here is give yourself time to factor in a time period for adjustment. It's going to be a major adjustment for you depending on where you're coming from. So make sure that you're allowing yourself some grace in that regard so that you can actually make the proper adjustment to your new life here in Utah. And why does all of this matter? Well, the home that you pick needs to serve you not just right now, but the lifestyle that you want for yourself and your family, and of course, your future. If you move and later feel, you know what, we're not connected, or the schools aren't what we hoped for, that adds stress to your life. We don't want that. So committing to the right community means better long-term satisfaction. And the final major point here is that relocation checklist and guide that I've built to make sure that this is a perfect move for you. And look, all of the information in the world will not help you unless you act. And so here is the perfect checklist and guide to make sure that we're helping you and making sure that this move is perfect for you. And look, we've learned about cost, we've learned about lifestyle, we've learned about community, and of course, what attracts people to different types of areas. Now it comes down to the move itself. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and you've got to be well guided, and that's precisely why we are here. And look, many people underestimate these steps. They really underestimate it because they are very simple. Things like registering your vehicles and making all of the little changes in terms of setting up your utilities and preparing for the climate and mixing your budget into your new life here in Utah. But making that life in Utah is my number one goal, to make that as easy as possible for you. And in my approach and my strategy in helping you relocate here, I've built out a number of steps of things that we have to do to make this perfect for you. First and foremost is let's identify your budget and review that budget and dial in your home search. To set a realistic budget based on current market conditions is crucial. And we've got to talk about the inventory and the different opportunities. And we've got to discover what's on the market with respect to existing home sales, or do we want to look at new construction, or both? All of these things become a factor. Next up, we want to talk about location. We want to filter things down and kind of treat this kind of like a funnel. We'll start with a really broad search, but we really want to dial it down to just 2 or 3 areas that you find most appealing for you. And that way we can really start to narrow things down and you don't feel like you're missing out on something because you've already eliminated the other areas by default because you've chosen the best areas for you. Next up is to come and visit. I always have clients in town every single week. In fact, every single day I've got clients here and I'm going on tours with them and just touring different areas with you to make sure that you're getting aligned with what is the best place for me and understanding the pros and cons of each one of these areas. And I think it's this test fit, so to speak, that really helps people get people from point A to point B where they're ready to move forward. It really does help knowing that you're coming to visit and look at everything without the expectation that you're buying right now, because it will prepare you for when you actually do buy. Next up, you've got to prepare for the climate and the gear or the vehicles depending on where you're coming from. If you're coming from low altitude, humid climates, you've got to start preparing for that dry air, higher altitude, and of course, snow and wintertime. Get vehicles winterized or getting a vehicle that can actually handle the canyons or the weather here depending on what you're going to be doing. Then we're going to dial into the schools and the community, making sure that you're dialed in with it to make sure that it's the perfect spot for you and your family. And I think that this is one of the most crucial points to make sure that these areas that we're considering are really perfect for you. And then it comes down to logistics. It's making sure we make the offer on the right property, we navigate the transaction properly, we understand HOAs, local things, all the nuances of making that move, and of course, the logistics of actually making it happen. Next up, I want to make sure that you're dialed in with local community groups, especially Facebook groups, because I think it's one of those places where you can really dial in and integrate yourself with the community and make good, meaningful connections, and even, yes, make really good friends. And with all of these things in our plan, I want to make sure that we have some contingency, some room for contingency, whether that's in your budget or otherwise, to make sure that you're really well prepared and that you don't have any surprises that really set you back. Okay, so why does all of this even matter to begin with? Well, knowledge without action is just potential. If you follow these steps, you reduce surprises, you feel in control, you make sure the move becomes a win-win, not just a relocation. You'll arrive, you'll settle in, and you'll feel like you made the right decision. And to me, making the right decision means the world. And I think if we just recap what we've talked about what it means to actually make the move here to begin with, why people make the move here. And we covered the cost of housing. We covered the cost of just life in Utah in general to make sure that we figure out how to dial you in with your budget. We also talked a little bit about lifestyle and the outdoors and how that really plays a role in most people's lives here in the state of Utah. And how is that going to impact you? We talked about jobs, commute times, public transportation. Where do you want to live based on where you're going to be working? Are you going to be working remotely, and how does that impact you? We talked about families and schools and diving into a community and really connecting with those that are going to be your new neighbors. And so if you're moving to Utah in 2026, you're not just relocating, you're stepping into a dynamic, growing region with amazing possibilities. But moving well means decisions now that set you up for long-term success. And look, if you found this video helpful, it would mean the world to me if you hit that subscribe button. It really does help me, and it will help you to learn more about life in Utah. And if you're looking at making that move to Utah or within the state, my team and I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. We help people just like you every single day. Just reach out to us. You can find our contact information down in the description below, or you can book a video call with us in the link that you'll find in the pinned comment on this and every video. And if you're looking to learn more about life in Utah, check out this playlist next. And until the next video, thanks.